The window has now been framed and I'm ready to ply line it. Before I ply line it, what I've got to do is I've got to finish off the insulation. So there's some areas where I didn't insulate because I was waiting to frame it. Finally finished all the insulation for the side of the van. It's amazing how much insulation the side of a van can take. You think, how am I going to get rid of all this roll of insulation? There's so much of it, and then you start packing it in and it just seems endless the amount you can pack in there. And now it's ready for the vapor barrier, so let's get to work on the vapor barrier. This time I'm not going to make the same mistake I did on the opposite wall, and I'm going to run the vapor barrier all the way down from the roof to the bottom. That will then save me having to go back, because last time I taped the vapor barrier as far as here, and I flipped it up and then I sprayed and I put it down, and then I had to run another strip of vapor barrier along here from the roof to that vapor barrier on the side. On the opposite wall I had all the cables for the electrics running just along the top, so that's the reason I wasn't able to vapor barrier from the roof down to the bottom. Obviously if I was to do this again, I'd have a better idea of where my electrics were going to go, and the first thing I'd do would be to install the electrics and then vapor barrier. So let's get cracking with the vapor barrier on this side of the van, get that done, and then we can start ply lining and frame out for the window. So let's go. So last night I finished the vapor barrier and I got it all attached to the side of the van, and now this is all vapor barriered from the roof down. So I ran along the roof here with the vapor barrier and then attached it and then sealed it all in from the top to the bottom. I also managed to finish the rest of the roof. I wanted to first get the vapor barrier done on this side of the wall so I could then run the last few pieces of cladding along the roof, and I'm happy with the way that's looking. And as you can see, this is completely vapor barriered from the bottom right all the ways up along, all the way into the inside of the window, in between the blocks, and all the ways up to the roof and down along here around water tank filler and all the way up along the sides here. I'm going to vapor barrier up along there at a later date. It's very dark. Anyway, so now the next thing to do is to ply line this area, and what I think I'm going to do is I'll cut one long strip of ply to attached to the top 4 blocks of wood, and then that will allow me to get a measurement down from the top. I'll line it up with this sheet of ply, and then I'll run it down from the top and measure to the bottom of this plywood strip, and that will then give me my measurement for this top section of ply. And I'm going to run it from here to this beam here, so the center of this beam here, and that will allow me to secure it. There's a beam here that I can secure it into, and also I can secure it into this beam here, and then that will allow me to meet that, join the other plywood strip and run that along the top here, and then keep it flush with this recess. So that's my plan. Then once I have that on top here, I can then do the same for the sides. So I'll cut a strip of ply, attach it to the blocks of wood, and then get my measurement from this plywood edge to the outer edge of the plywood that's going to be attached there. Because what I'm going to do is I'll then sheet this, then I'll attach my plywood strip to the blocks of wood, and then what I'll do is I'll get trim to then go around to break that joint where the plywood's going to be running out here, and that joint there, and I will then run that from the base of the countertop, because the countertop will be coming in here, and then I'll run it straight up and then straight across and then down the other side. So that's the plan, and we'll see how it goes. Let's get cracking on that, and hopefully it shall be a success. The strip of ply will be narrower on the outside and then wider on the inside, because there's also a bow going like that. So you just scribe it in and leave a few mil, 5 or 6 mil, and then you can fill that in with some silicone. I'm going to scribe this strip of ply and then screw it to the underneath of the blocks of wood, these 4 blocks. So let's do that. Now that I've attached the plywood strip, I've measured from the top to the bottom of that, and that's 18 inches. So what I'll do is I'll cut a strip maybe 18.25 inches, just have that bit of play, and then what I can do is I'm going to cut it 18.25 at this length, 5 foot from this sheet of ply to this beam here, and then that will be the top section. And what I'll do is I'll mark out the areas where I'm going to secure it with the screws. I'll secure it with 2 screws, one there and one there, and then what I'm going to do is, because it's going to be overhanging the plywood, I will then scribe it from the inside of the plywood, and that will get it perfectly scribed to the plywood. If I cut it to the exact measurements that I'm measuring, because this is a van and nothing is straight, nothing is level, there's angles everywhere, you're not going to get it right. So what I'm going to do is scribe it in to the actual plywood, so then I know the joint is perfect. When I screwed the strip of ply to the blocks of wood, I only screwed it to the 2 outside blocks of wood, and what I discovered was that this one was a bit longer than the other ones, and this one is a bit shorter. So using a Stanley knife and being very careful not to hit the window, I just scraped off a bit. It was only like less than a mil, but it was making a difference, and now that's a lot better. And this one has a bit of a gap. It has a tree, like a big oak tree gap, and I'm gonna just stick like a small 3 mil piece of tree in there, and it should be okay. I'll just show you what I mean. That's a slight gap, but I can just put a packer in there. I'll cut a packer and glue it. So let's cut that strip. Now that I have the top section secured in with 2 screws, what I'm going to do is push it in against the plywood and then scribe it along the edge of the plywood. Then I will cut it and reattach the screws up here, but before that I will countersink them and mark the areas along the top where I can actually secure the self-tapping screws into. So let's give that a go and see how we get on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out on the roof the sections where I can actually secure this piece of ply onto the side of the van. So now that I have it marked out, I've got them on the roof, I've got all the areas where I can screw into the side of the van, and I've also got these blocks so I can screw in from the front. I can screw into these blocks, 16mm screws. What I'm going to do now is put it back on, drill a 2mm pilot hole, countersink it, and then secure it with the self-tapping screws. They're 25mm self-tapping screws, so let's do that. That's the end of this episode, and as you can see, the window is now complete. So if you want to see how I finished the window, tune into the next episode and I will show you exactly how I got to this stage and how I ply lined the rest of the window out. On the next episode I will be showing you how I trim out the edges of the window with some trim, and it's fairly straightforward. You just have to cut it, paint it. We're halfway through. I know it's been a long process, but I wanted to go through it all step by step and not cram it all into one video. I wanted to cover as much as I could on how to frame out a window from start to finish, so I hope it'll be of some use for your van build. Thanks a million for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please do give it a like. Also subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell icon, and you'll be the first to be notified for future videos in the van build series. And again, come back to the next episode and I will show you exactly how I finished off the window. See you on the next one.